You know, when we look at a modern map of the world today, we just sort of expect total clarity. I mean, we have satellites that can literally read a license plate from space.
Oh, absolutely.
We've
Yeah.
got GPS tracking, every single delivery truck on the highway. We expect the world to be known, measured, and just entirely mapped out for us.
Right. Those blank spots on the map, the areas that medieval map makers used to label "here be dragons," those have supposedly been filled in for centuries now. I mean, we rely really heavily on the comfort of a visible, categorized world.
We do. But then you look at this one specific patch of the North Atlantic Ocean, and suddenly our modern high-tech map just feels like it's glitching.
Yeah, the GPS stops making sense.
Exactly. The certainties just sort of dissolve right into the water. And that's really why today's deep dive is taking us straight into the ultimate geographic blind spot.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this massive stack of source material spread out on the table right in front of us.
It is quite a stack, yeah.
We've got declassified Navy records, historical ship logs, meteorological data, and some pretty ruthless skeptical investigations, too. And our mission for you today is to sift through all of this, to separate the genuine, terrifying mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle from the fabricated myths.
Which is definitely necessary with this topic.
Right, because, okay, let's unpack this. Pop culture just absolutely loves to fixate on UFOs and Atlantis, but if you look at the facts hidden in these actual documents, the reality is much stranger than the fiction.
It usually is, honestly. And to really understand this, I mean, we need to examine both the physical environment of that ocean and the human psychology that even allowed this legend to take root in the first place.
Yeah, and I want to start by throwing down the physical boundaries because I always picture the Bermuda Triangle as this, I don't know, this tiny, highly concentrated vortex or something.
Oh, a lot of people do, like a specific whirlpool.
Exactly. But looking at the actual geography here, it's a loosely defined region forming a triangle between Miami, Florida, the island of Bermuda, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. I mean, we are talking about roughly 500,000 square miles of open ocean.
It is massive.
It really is. Think of it as a massive, invisible aquatic highway with absolutely no speed limits or guardrails.
And, it happens to be one of the most heavily traveled shipping and flying routes in the entire world. We aren't dealing with some remote, isolated stretch of water at the edge of the world here.
Right.
This is a major, major intersection for global commerce, cruise ships, and military flights.
Which makes the disappearances even crazier. And going through the historical text, here's a detail that totally threw me. I just assumed sailors had been whispering about the Bermuda Triangle for centuries, but that name didn't even exist until 1964.
Yeah, relatively recent.
A writer named Vincent Gaddis coined the term in a Pulp magazine article. But the strangeness of the area itself, that actually goes way, way back. I'm looking at translated excerpts from Christopher Columbus's 1492 journal.
Oh, the Columbus logs, right.
Yeah, he sailed right through this exact area. And he specifically notes his compass behaving erratically, and then he records seeing a mysterious flame falling right into the sea. Now, come on. A falling flame in 1492, that sounds exactly like a meteor, doesn't it?
Almost certainly.
So my question to you is Columbus's sighting of a falling flame a genuine clue? Or just the earliest example of confirmation bias because we want there to be a mystery?
Well, the falling flame was, like you said, almost certainly a meteor, which is an awe-inspiring but entirely natural astronomical event, especially back then. But don't dismiss the compass reading.
Really, the compass thing is legit.
Yeah, the erratic compass behavior, he noted, is actually a very real, scientifically documented anomaly in that specific region. We'll get into the magnetism later, but Columbus's journal is significant because it proves this area's reputation for unsettling phenomena was brewing over 500 years ago, long before anyone gave it a catchy name.
Wow, okay. Well, that centuries-old reputation really exploded into full-blown public panic in the 20th century. I'm pulling out the declassified Navy report for an incident from December 5, 1945.
Ah, Flight 19.
Exactly. This is the case that had essentially built the modern legend. 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers take off from Fort Lauderdale for a routine afternoon training mission. 14 men across 5 planes.
And these were highly trained men, flying relatively new equipment in an era when the U.S. military was really viewed as technologically supreme.
Right, they knew what they were doing. Everything is totally normal until about 90 minutes into the flight. The lead pilot, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, radios back to base, And just reading the transcript of this transmission, it is chilling.
What did he say exactly?
He said, "We cannot see land. We don't know where we are."
I mean, that is an incredibly alarming transmission for a flight leader to make just off the coast of Florida. These pilots are trained to navigate by sight, by the sun, and by their instruments. For him to be completely blind to his location implies a massive, total failure of both visibility and instrumentation.
Yeah, and the margin notes in the report show his compass was acting up. The other pilots start to get confused. Instead of heading west back to shore, the squadron begins flying in the wrong direction, pushing further and further out to sea.
Just heading into the open ocean.
Yeah, and the radio contact gets really distorted, broken up by static, and then total silence.
They ran out of fuel and had to ditch in the ocean. It's tragic.
But the story doesn't end there. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Navy immediately scrambles a massive Martin Mariner rescue seaplane with 13 men on board to go find them. They fly out to the last known coordinates, and that rescue plane completely disappears too.
Just vanishes?
27 men, 6 military aircraft completely vanished in a single afternoon. The official Navy report I'm holding right here just concludes, cause unknown. No wreckage from any of those 6 aircraft was ever recovered.
You can see how an event like that just completely shatters the public's illusion of control. A whole squadron evaporating. Along with their rescuers, it feels supernatural.
It totally does. And looking back further in the military records, it wasn't the first time. The file on the USS Cyclops from March 1918 is just as baffling.
Oh, the Cyclops is a huge one.
Yeah, this was a massive U.S. Navy cargo ship, over 500 feet long, carrying 309 people and a heavy load of manganese ore. It left Barbados heading for Baltimore. It never arrived.
No distress signal, no wreckage, no debris.
Nothing. President Woodrow Wilson literally said at the time, "Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship." Now, let me stop and push back on this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
I can somewhat understand a 1918 cargo ship sinking without a trace. It's older technology. It's carrying thousands of tons of heavy ore.
Yeah.
But 6 fully equipped military aircraft in 1945. How did 27 men vanish without a single floating life vest, an oil slick, or a piece of debris left behind? I mean, I have a really hard time buying that a whole squadron just vaporizes.
I get it. It sounds physically impossible until you factor in the specific oceanography of the region, specifically the Gulf Stream.
Okay, the Gulf Stream, how does that hide 6 planes?
Well, think of the Gulf Stream as an incredibly fast-flowing, massive river hidden within the ocean itself, cutting right through the Bermuda Triangle. The current there is exceptionally powerful. If an aircraft ditches into the water or a ship goes down, the Gulf Stream isn't going to politely leave the wreckage at the GPS coordinates.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it can scatter debris, life vests, and oil slicks over hundreds of miles in a matter of mere hours.
So by the time a search party actually gets organized and reaches the spot hours later, the evidence is already in another time zone.
Precisely. And it's not just moving horizontally. The topography of the ocean floor there is dramatic. The Atlantic isn't a flat swimming pool. In parts of the Bermuda Triangle, the ocean floor drops into trenches that reach depths of 27,000 feet.
27,000.
Yes. If a plane sinks, it is swallowed by an abyss so deep that recovering it, especially with 1940s technology, is entirely out of the question.
You could literally drop Mount Everest in there and still have water covering the peak. That is terrifying. Okay, so we have military training missions and wartime voyages meeting tragic ends. But looking at this stack of news clippings, the phenomenon targets commercial flights just as relentlessly.
Oh, definitely.
And honestly, reading about the civilian cases is even more unnerving because it's just everyday people trying to get from point A to point B.
The commercial flights are really what cemented the terror in the public consciousness. It made it feel like it could happen to anyone.
Let's look at the British passenger plane, Star Tiger, in January of 1948. It had 31 people on board flying from the Azores to Bermuda. The weather was fine. The pilot gave zero indication of distress. But the plane just never arrived.
Just gone.
The official investigation report literally says what happened will never be known. And it doesn't stop there. Almost exactly 1 year later, January 1949, a second British aircraft named Star Ariel disappears on a similar route. 20 people on board, gone.
It's a striking pattern.
It is. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a passenger stepping onto that second flight. 2 identical planes, the exact same route, exactly 1 year apart.
What's fascinating here is the common denominator in all these files, both civilian and military. Whether it's the USS Cyclops with 309 people, the Star flights, Or even the Marine Sulphur Queen, an American tanker that vanished in 1963 with 39 crew members. There are absolutely no distress signals.
Right, nothing on the radio at all.
Exactly. In the case of the Sulphur Queen, investigators only found a single life jacket. If a ship is taking on water or an airplane is dealing with engine failure, there is almost always a window of time for a captain or pilot to get on the radio and send out a mayday or an SOS.
Right, a massive cargo ship doesn't just sink in 5 seconds. It takes
Okay,
time.
yeah, exactly. Which implies that whatever is taking these vessels down isn't a slow mechanical failure. It is something catastrophic and instantaneous.
So if dozens of massive vessels and aircraft are vanishing without the time to send a single SOS, what physical force in this specific area is powerful enough to swallow them instantly? I've got a scientific research paper here that proposes a theory I had never heard of before.
Which one is that?
Methane hydrate explosions. But looking at this, it reads like science fiction. How does an underwater gas pocket sink a 500-foot steel cargo ship?
It's actually a really fascinating mechanism. Massive deposits of methane gas are trapped beneath the ocean floor in this region, frozen under immense pressure. If a seismic event shifts the floor, these deposits can suddenly release, sending a gigantic bubble of gas racing toward the surface.
Okay.
So imagine the ocean suddenly turning into a violently carbonated soda. When that concentrated methane bubble hits the surface right under a ship, it drastically and instantaneously reduces the density of the water.
Oh, I see. It's like the ocean suddenly turning into a carbonated soda, where a heavy ship simply drops like a stone through the fizz, so the water literally can't hold the weight of the ship anymore.
Right. A ship floats because of buoyancy. It displaces its own weight in water. If the water suddenly becomes a froth of gas and liquid, it loses that density. The ship simply drops like a stone. There's no slow sinking. It drops into the ocean as quickly as if it were falling through thin air.
That is wild.
And Australian scientists actually built scale models and proved in a lab that a methane bubble can sink a ship in seconds.
Okay, I can visualize a ship falling through a giant patch of fizzy water. That makes sense for boats. But what about the airplanes? Flight 19, the Starplane's methane gas isn't reaching up and pulling an airplane out of the sky, right?
Well, methane could theoretically alter the air density enough to stall an engine if a plane is flying incredibly low, but you're right to be skeptical about that one for aircraft. For the planes, meteorology offers a much more violent explanation.
Which is?
Satellite data from 2016 revealed unusual hexagonal clouds forming over the triangle. Meteorologists refer to what happens under these clouds as air bombs. They generate hyper-localized, incredibly violent downdrafts of air that slam into the ocean surface at up to 170 miles per hour.
Wait, 170 miles per hour? Look, I get nervous when my coffee spills during a little bit of turbulence on a commercial flight. But could 170 mile per hour wind really take down a large modern airplane so fast the pilot couldn't even grab the radio to call for help?
Absolutely. We're talking about microbursts. When a column of dense air plummets and hits the ocean at 170 miles per hour, it doesn't just push the plane down, it entirely disrupts the airflow over the wings.
Oh, because planes need that airflow.
Exactly. An airplane relies on a steady, predictable flow of air to generate lift, a massive downdraft strips that lift away instantaneously. The pilot isn't just dealing with a bumpy ride, they are suddenly fighting a sheer vertical drop with zero aerodynamic support.
So they just fall out of the sky.
Yeah. If they are flying low to begin with or caught off guard in the dark, it's a lethal trap. Combine that with the massive waves those winds kick up, and it's over in seconds.
Speaking of massive waves, the meteorological data I have here also points to rogue waves. These are sudden freak walls of water that can reach up to 100 feet high.
Right, the 30-meter waves.
Yeah, they appear out of nowhere, independent of the surrounding sea state, and can snap a ship in half before the crew even knows what hit them. And then there's the compass anomaly. We talked about Columbus's compass acting up. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the only places on Earth, I think the other being the Devil's Sea near Japan, where true north and magnetic north perfectly align.
Navigators call it the agonic line. Compasses point to magnetic north, but maps are drawn using true north. Usually you have to calculate the difference, which is called magnetic variation, to stay on course.
Okay, that makes sense.
But when you cross the agonic line, the variation drops to zero. If a pilot or captain isn't actively monitoring and adjusting for that shift, their navigational instruments will actively lie to them.
which perfectly explains Lieutenant Charles Taylor's complete disorientation during Flight 19.
Exactly. If the weather turns, you lose your visual references, and your compass is suddenly misbehaving, panic sets in very quickly.
Of course, while all this science is fascinating, I feel like we'd be ignoring a huge part of the source material if we didn't mention the exotic theories.
Oh, the fun stuff.
Yeah, the UFOs scooping up planes, the underwater alien bases, the idea that the lost city of Atlantis has, like, ancient crystals interfering with our electronics, or even time vortexes.
Yeah.
None of this has a shred of scientific backing, obviously, but they completely dominate the pop culture conversation.
They really do.
Why do you think people gravitate toward Atlantis when the reality of a 170-mile-per-hour microburst is terrifying enough?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's because a microburst is just a random, meaningless tragedy. When conventional natural explanations feel insufficient to explain the sheer emotional scale of losing 309 people on a massive Navy ship, the human mind instinctively reaches for the supernatural.
We want a story.
Exactly. We are pattern-seeking creatures. We want there to be a grand reason, even a paranormal one, rather than accepting chaotic, unpredictable chance.
Which brings us to arguably the most important book in this entire stack. If the science tells us how things might vanish, this investigation asks us an entirely different question. Are things actually vanishing here at a higher rate than anywhere else?
Ah, Kush's book.
Yes, I've got Lawrence David Kush's 1975 book right here, The Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved. Kusha was a research librarian, and he didn't just read the spooky paperback legends. He went to the original sources.
Which is what everyone should do.
Right. He pulled the actual Coast Guard files, the Navy reports, and the original insurance records. And his findings basically dismantle the entire myth.
Kush's methodology was a masterclass in critical investigation. What did he actually find when he cross-referenced all those legends?
Well, first he found that many of these supposedly mysterious disappearances didn't even happen inside the triangle. Writers were including ships that sank off the coast of Ireland or in the Pacific Ocean just to pad the stats.
Wow, just completely changing the geography.
Totally. He also found that several ships reported as vanished without a trace in the 1960s. Paperbacks actually arrived at their destination a few days late. They were found. But the press never printed retractions because a solved mystery doesn't sell magazines.
It's the ultimate confirmation bias. The writers started with the conclusion that the triangle was deadly and selectively cherry-picked the data to support it.
Exactly. And Kusha also pulled the weather reports for the days when ships supposedly vanished in calm, clear seas. It turns out there were massive, documented hurricanes on those exact dates. The storm data was just conveniently omitted by the storytellers.
Unbelievable.
But the absolute nail in the coffin for me and Kusha's research involves Lloyd's of London. They are the world's most famous, established maritime insurance market. They insure the biggest cargo ships on the planet. And Kusha found that Lloyd's of London does not charge higher insurance premiums for routes passing through the Bermuda Triangle.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, they don't consider it any more dangerous than any other heavily traveled patch of ocean. So what does this all mean? If the world's most ruthlessly mathematical industry insurance doesn't believe in the Bermuda Triangle, why does it have such a psychological grip on you and me?
Because that is the ultimate reality check. Math and money do not care about ghost stories. If there was a statistically significant, elevated risk of multi-million-dollar cargo ships disappearing in that specific grid, the actuaries at an insurance firm would have priced it into their premiums immediately.
They wouldn't miss a chance to charge more.
Exactly. Capitalism would have quantified the Bermuda Triangle. The fact that they don't charge an extra dime tells you everything you need to know about the actual statistical danger.
It really does. And the U.S. Coast Guard backs this up completely. They officially state that looking at the sheer volume of traffic that passes through there every day, the number of ships and planes that go missing is entirely proportionate to any other ocean.
So it's just a numbers game.
Exactly. So we've walked through the origins, the tragedies, the brutal weather science, and the cold, hard math of the insurance companies. It's time to lay out the bottom line for you.
Let's hear it.
The reality of the Bermuda Triangle is that it is a potent, deadly recipe for natural disaster. You have ocean depths dropping to 27,000 feet, incredibly unpredictable weather patterns that can drop an airplane out of the sky in seconds, the relentless, evidence-erasing power of the Gulf Stream, and just a massive volume of daily traffic. It's not a cursed vortex. It's just an extremely busy, incredibly volatile environment.
The Atlantic Ocean is vast and entirely unforgiving. A small mistake, A sudden equipment failure or a freak change in the weather can erase a vessel long before anyone even knows it's in trouble.
Yet, even with Kush's brilliant debunking, we can't ignore the files still sitting on this table. Despite all the science and all the skepticism, some cases genuinely remain unsolved.
Sure.
The 27 men of Flight 19, the 309 souls on the USS Cyclops, the passengers on Star Tiger and Star Ariel. We have theories, sure, but decades later, we still don't have a single piece of definitive physical evidence for those specific tragedies. The deep water really holds on to its secrets.
And maybe that is the lingering thought you should take away from all this. We started by talking about how confident we are in our modern mapped-out world. But if a massive ship or an aircraft can still vanish today, swallowed by a trench we can't reach, or scattered by a current we can't control, what does that really say about our true dominance over the natural world?
That's a great point.
Are we genuinely as in control as our GPS screens make us feel? Or is the ocean simply too vast, too powerful, and too deep to ever fully tame?
That is exactly the kind of question that keeps you staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. If you want to keep exploring the unexplained with us, make sure to subscribe to our channel to listen to more mysterious podcasts like this. Until next time, stay curious.